for letting me opportunity to have interaction with our delegates. Okay, so for the next couple of minutes, I'm going to discuss about anatomical and the physiological changes which are there in pediatric patients as compared to the adults. We can divide the pediatric patients into different age groups, like a neonate, which we call a baby within 44 weeks from the age of date of conception, an infant up to 1 year of age, child from 1 to 12 years, and adolescents from 13 to 16 years. And as we are anesthesiologists, for us, cardiorespiratory system is very important. So first, I would like to discuss about the anatomical and the physiological changes which are there in respiratory system as compared to the adults. So if we talk about pediatric patients, particularly neonates, the foremost change in the respiratory system is that they have got smaller number of alveoli, which are approximately 10% of the adult value. Now, because of this, very less surface areas available for gas exchange in these patients. The pediatric patients have got cartilaginous rib cage as compared to bony structure in adult. They have got weak intercostal and diaphragmatic musculars. So if if any obstruction is there in the respiratory system in the upper airway, the muscles they get fatigued easily, and also they cannot generate much in inspiratory and expiratory pressure. The ribs in pediatric patients are horizontally placed as compared to sloped anatomy in adult patients. So they cannot increase their diameter both in anterior, posterior, and the lateral directions. So almost fixed tidal volume is there. So they can only increase their minute ventilation by increasing the respiratory rate. They have got large head and the tongue as compared to, if you talk about the size of the tongue, it is very large as compared to the oral cavity. So there is very much is left when we do laryngoscopy in these patients, and tongue tends to fall even on the right side of the laryngoscope blade, unless until we keep it far, just far away on the right side. The clinical implication large is that when we try to place the pediatric patients, particularly neonates and infants, in the sniffing positions, it more likely to obstruct the laryngoscopic view or the glottic view. So to intubate in these patients, that the head has to place in neutral position. Now they have narrow nasal passages is there, and the so because of narrow nasal passages, there is more likely to be obstruction, even if slight edema is there in the nasal cavity. Now, up to 5 months of age, the pediatric patients are obligate nasal breathers. So, if their nasal passages are blocked, they cannot adequately take respiration through the mouth. Although now new evidence is coming that they can convert to oral breathing after 10 to 15 seconds of apnea, but up to 5 months of age, the usual conception is that they are obligate nasal breathers. The larynx in these pediatric patients is higher place at the level of C3 and C4 as compared to C5 and C6 in adult patients. So when we try to do laryngoscopy, it is more anteriorly and the higher placed. So it is much difficult to view in pediatric patients. They have got large epiglottis, which is omega shaped and floppy. So even if we place our laryngoscope blade in the vallecula, we are not able to lift off the epiglottis out of the glottic opening. So we have to lift the epiglottis straightway with the laryngoscope blade. They have got short neck and trachea, so there is very less interplay is available for movement of the tracheal tube. Children, particularly in 4 to 5 years of age, they have got prominent adenoids and tonsils. So very less space is there. And because of prominent adenoid and tonsils, these patients, after anesthesia induction, they may go into upper respiratory obstruction. Now, in pediatric patients, the narrowest part of the trachea is, or the larynx is, at the level of cricoid cartilage. So the tube which can easily pass through the glottic opening, it may be too tight below the vocal cords in pediatric patients as compared to adults in which the nervous part is at the level of glottic opening. However, recent edition of Miller, this has been challenged, but for the exam purpose, you should remember that this has got clinical importance, that the nervous part of the larynx is cricoid cartilage below the glottic opening. If I talk about physiological changes, the lungs of the pediatric patient, they have got decreased lung compliance. So they are stiff as compared to adult lungs. They have got increased chest wall compliance. So if some respiratory obstruction is there, there is tendency to indrawing of the chest. In pediatric patients, there is higher closing capacity than FRC. The implication is that there is less reserve is available because the closing capacity is higher than FRC. So lungs tend to collapse. So when we are administering anesthesia to pediatric patients, the use of PEEP and IPPV is essential. That is, controlled ventilation is essential because to open the lungs, because at spontaneous respiration, the lung collapses and leads to formation of atelectasis. Now, because of absence of type 1 muscular fibers, the energy expenditure is there in respiratory muscles of pediatric patients. So, much higher energy is utilized for the respiratory work as compared to adults.
नहीं आया क्या सटाई
Uh,
तो
excuse me. Now, they have got underdeveloped hypoxic and hypercapnic ventilatory tract. So, if in case hypoxia is there or hypercapnia is there, they cannot increase their ventilation to offset this. So, they are mm, much prone to go into respiratory depression. As I have talked earlier, the pediatric patients are obligate nasal breathers up to 5 months of age. So, up to this age, we should avoid nasal intubation because after nasal intubation, after we have extubated after we have extubated the patient, because of injury to the nasal mucosa, the respiratory obstruction might be there. Now, because of decrease in FRC as compared to alveolar ventilation, limited oxygen reserve is available during the periods of apnea. So, they are much prone for desaturation as compared to adults. And also their oxygen consumption is higher as compared to oxygen reserve. They are predisposed to hypoxemia and atelectasis. So as I've already talked about this position, that significant position worsen the view of the larynx because of last and difficult laryngoscopy and intubation in pediatric patients. Straight bit laryngoscopy is necessary to lift off the epiglottis. And uncuffed tube should be used because of nervous part of the trachea is cricoid cartilage. So some space should be left between the tube and the trachea because the mucosa in pediatric patients, the tracheal mucosa in pediatric patients is very soft and loosely attached to the trachea. So even if smallest injury is there, there is tracheal edema is there, which may lead to respiratory obstruction in these patients. The cardiovascular system of the pediatric patients have got non-compliant and the poorly developed left ventricle. That is, they cannot compensate for the
सुना
large,
दिया सुना दिया
they cannot compensate for the large volume, and also the contractile elements are very less as compared to collagen tissue in pediatric patients. So they cannot increase their stroke volume by increasing the contraction of the left ventricle. So there, the increase in the cardiac output can only be achieved by increase in the heart rate. They have got immature sympathetic system and parasympathetic reflexes. The parasympathetic system is much dominant over sympathetic nervous system in pediatric patients. So if some stress is there to the pediatric patients, the bradycardia predominates as compared to tachycardia. Now, the pediatric patients can tolerate heart rates up to 200 per minute very easily as compared to bradycardia. If the heart rate goes below 60, we have to start the CPR so that the adequate blood pressure or the adequate blood flow should be there to the vital organs. Because of immature sympathetic nervous system, there is very low catecholamine stores in these patients. So in the event of stress, they cannot increase their sympathetic drive like the adult patients can do. Now, some of the patients, pediatric patients, particularly the premature ones, they have got residual fetal circulation. And because of presence of residual fetal circulations, the left to right and the right to left shunts are there. And because of that, these shunts, even if some desaturation is there to these patients, when we try to administer 100% oxygen, they, they take time to get the saturation to rise up. So we have also kept in mind, and some of the pediatric patients they can revert from back to fetal circulation in case of stress, like hypoxia or hypercapnia. Now, the cardiac cells have got cardiac myocytes have got immature sarcoplasmic reticulum. So the calcium stores in the cardiomyocytes are not very much developed. So if some volatile anesthetics like halothane have got calcium channel blocking property, it leads to more cardiac myocyte depletion and further leads to hypertension and bradycardia in these patients. So cardiac output is very much dependent on our heart rate because the stroke volume cannot be increased by cardiac muscles. Even if we try to give exogenous catecholamines like adrenaline and non-adrenaline, because the receptors, the adrenergic receptors are not well developed in these patients, so they have got blunted response to exogenous catecholamines also. They have got limited capability to cope with hemodynamic stress. And as I said earlier, the volatile anesthetic, we have got calcium channel blocking properties like halothane. They are much prone to the they are much prone to lead to hypertension and bradycardia. And if intravascular volume depletion is there in pediatric patients, they straightway go into hypotension without compensatory tachycardia. So, in case of anesthetic overdose and the activation of parasympathetic nervous system or hypoxia can straightway lead to bradycardia and profound reduction in cardiac output. And they are very much susceptible to myocardial depression effect of inhaled anesthetic agents like halothane. So these are the common normal cardiovascular parameters according to a different age group. You should memorize. You should know that when you try to do a case presentation in the final exam, the examiner might ask you what is the normal systolic and diastolic blood pressure in the said age group. So you should always know what is the normal hemodynamic parameters in pediatric patients. So you should memorize it. If we talk about renal and GI functions, they are markedly diminished in neonates and particularly in preterm neonates. Near complete maturation of glomerular filtration and tubular function occurs 20 weeks after birth. So both the glomerular filtration and the tubular functions are immature in pediatric patients. It takes almost 2 years for renal function to mature. Particularly premature neonates, they might possess multiple renal defects like decreased renal clearance, impaired sodium retention, glucose excretion, bicarbonate absorption. They've got poor dilating and concentrating ability. So they cannot compensate both for hypervolemia and hypovolemia because of immaturity of renal system. So they are poor in absorbing bicarbonate. They are prone for losing sodium through the urine. So we have to take into account these parameters when we try to decide about the intraoperative or postoperative fluid therapy in pediatric patients. the liver enzyme, the liver system, because we all know that the whatever the drug is given to the patients, the drug has to be metabolized by the liver, and it happens in two stages: phase one and the phase two. Phase one is oxidation reduction stage, and the phase two is conjugation stage. Now, both of these stages are immature in pediatric patients. So, all those drugs which are going to be metabolized, they tend to have prolonged action in pediatric patients. And the hepatic glycogen stores are also less in neonates, particularly those who are premature, those for short for gestational age, small for gestational age, and those who are born to diabetic mothers because of presence of insulin. So, because of that, the glucose in the maintenance fluid is necessary, particularly in premature patients, and after prolonged fasting. They have got lower level of plasma albumin, so or other proteins which are necessary for drug binding. So much larger fraction of free drug is available for action. And there is no proper coordination of swallowing and respiration until 4 to 5 months of age. So high chances of gastroesophageal reflux is there in these patients. So what are the anesthetic implications? The TR4 drugs exceeded by glomerular filtrations are prolonged. Those drugs who are metabolized by liver are also prolonged, like morphine and benzodiazepine. We should always try to give adequate fluid to these patients to avoid overload and electrolyte abnormalities. And glucose containing fluid should be given in pre-op and intra-op period. And those drugs who are high plasma protein binding, like albumin, they should be given in lesser doses. Now, the temperature regulation is very important as far as anesthesia and surgery is concerned. In pediatric patient, there is an increased surface area and weight ratio. So, as compared to weight, much larger surface area is available for heat loss. So, and because they have got thin skin, low fat content, and high surface area, they are prone to losing much heat. So the neonates, because of presence of much less skeletal muscle mass, there is one major mechanism there for heat production, particularly in neonates, that is non-shivering thermogenesis by metabolism of brown fat. In brown fat, the oxidative phosphorylation and the ATP generation is decoupled. So instead of production of ATP, heat is produced, but it comes at a rate of high oxygen consumption. But it is these fat stores are also limited in premature and sick neonates. So they are very prone for hypothermia. So and also the volatile anesthetics, they inhibit the thermogenesis in broad adipocytes. So we have to be very careful in the operating room. We have to adequately cover the child so that the heat loss by any means should be reduced. If we compare the neutral temperature and the critical temperature in different age groups like preterm, neonate, and adult, we can see that the neutral temperature is the temperature at which the human body can maintain its body temperature without heat loss or heat gain. So for the preterm neonate, you can see that the neutral temperature is 34 and it is 28 for the adult, and the critical temperature is the temperature at which below which the survival is not possible. So for adult it is 1 degree Celsius, but for the pediatric patients, it is like for preterm neonate it is 28 and for neonate it is 23. So they are very prone for developing hypothermia and we have to take into account. And the hypothermia comes with a numerous side effects like delayed awakening, cardiac irritability, respiratory depression, and increased pulmonary vascular resistance and altered drug responses. So all attempts should be taken to prevent heat loss. OT temperature should be comfortable for the child, 26 degrees Celsius or warmer for pediatric patients. Inspired gases should be humidified, so heat loss should not be there through dry gases. Heat loss from the radiation can be decreased by using a double shade iLot. During transport, and even the skin disinfectant solutions should be warm. And when out of the OT, they should be kept in incubator covered with the blankets. If we talk about central nervous system, there is incomplete myelination of neurons is there in and in pediatric patients, and blood-brain barrier is also not fully developed. The spinal cord is terminated at a lower level as compared to the adult. The CSF volume is much larger in pediatric patients. Cranial sutures are opened, and in the peripheral nerves, there is poor myelination of the nerves. So, because of immature blood-brain barrier, opioids, barbiturates, and bilirubin, they can easily cross blood-brain barrier. So, they have got greater anesthetic effect as compared to adults. The intercrystalline in pediatric patient in child corresponds to L5S1 as compared to L3, L4 in adults. Now, increase in acidity, it leads to increase in the head size because of open cranial sutures. Now, because of presence of large volume of CSF, the equivalent doses of anesthetic, they have decreased duration of subarachnoid block in pediatric patients. And because of poor myelination on nerve, even dilute concentration of local anesthetic can block the peripheral nerve blockade. So a little bit talk about hematopoietic system. At birth, 70 to 90% of fetal hemoglobin is fetal hemoglobin. And progressive decrease in this hemoglobin is there at 3 to 6 months of age, both in the type and both in the value of hemoglobin. And at birth, there is deficiency of vitamin K dependent coagulation factors and the platelet. So the vitamin K is given at the birth to the patients. So take home message for my side is that the pediatric patients are not small rats. You cannot talk about state wave in the pediatric patients by just telling the examiner the drug doses is in milligram per kg as compared to the adults. So the entire anatomy and physiology is different in pediatric, particularly in neonate and premature pediatric patients. Thank you very much. If anybody